Welcome to the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast. I'm your host, Gwendolyn Mitchell, founder and CEO of Moyo Institute and lifelong spiritual seeker and energy worker. Here for thoughtful conversations about health, healing, and happiness by, for, and about Black and African American women. Disclaimer, the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast does not provide medical advice. The opinions, experiences, and insights shared are for informational purposes only. Nothing shared in this podcast is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. Don't disregard or delay seeking it because of what you've heard on this podcast. Thank you. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Thanks so much for your patience. We're back now with my guest for today, Talaya Dendy. Talaya, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Gwendolyn, for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let me just tell our listeners that your background is that you're a 12-year cancer thriver, a cancer doula, which we're going to get into a little bit today, independent patient advocate, cancer health equity consultant, and mental health first aider, and a podcaster.
Yeah.
And you've dedicated your career to guiding and supporting, empowering, and advocating for people diagnosed with cancer. Talaya has developed a fulfilling career path from cancer patient to founder and CEO of On the Other Side, LLC, a cancer navigation enterprise that provides personalized support in using a patient-centered and holistic approach. Talaya hosts the Navigating Cancer Together podcast and is a contributing author to a #1 best-selling book, I Survived Cancer, and Here's How I Did It. It shares stories of cancer survivors and thrivers to spread hope and to show that cancer diagnosis is not the end. That's very, very impressive. And I'm so happy that you are here with us to share your story. And I'd like to actually ask you to go back a ways and tell us something about yourself before the cancer diagnosis. I want to know what was important to you, who you are, what were you involved in your life. You were so young when you were diagnosed with cancer, and I'm sure that thought never even crossed your mind. So tell us who Talaya is.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gwen. Well, Talaya was someone who was very focused on climbing the corporate ladder. She had done all the things that, of course, family and society says you're supposed to do. Go to college, get a good degree, and a good job. And so I was following that path. Unfortunately, that was not a path that was right for me. And I say that because prior to cancer, I didn't realize that I was just going through the motions. And like I said, working in corporate America in supply chain, primarily with medical device and aerospace engineering companies. And I also had a plan that I was going to be married by a certain amount of time. I was going to have so many kids. You know how we do. But God had other plans for me. And again, just really focused on that part of my life and wanting to really save to be able to travel more outside of the country. I had already owned a home at that time, but just the normal things that society says we're supposed to be focused on in our early 30s.
Mm-hmm. And I know that the corporate ladder pursuit is a very stressful one. And it sounds like you were just totally immersed in that, making way for the life that you had planned for yourself.
Absolutely, Gwendolyn. I was really immersed in that and very driven. So that, along with all of the stress within the organizations that I was working in, really was not a good match. They were very toxic environments and situations. But again, we're told to press through and we'll get that big pot of gold at the end. And that does not always happen. And it's not something that we should be doing. Now I look back and I say we shouldn't be going against the grain in that way. We should be resting. We should be getting in the things that we need, not just financial means, but as far as nourishing our body, our spirits, and our minds as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. So let me ask you, how did you arrive at your cancer diagnosis? What happened?
I arrived a year late. And I say that because I actually had cancer a year before. So in 2010, I had cancer. And I had went to my primary care doctor for a physical exam. I pointed out to her the concern, which was a lump on the side of my neck. It was small at the time, but nonetheless a lump, one that I had never experienced before. And I was a very avid fitness person, worked out a lot. She said, "Oh, well, don't worry about it. It's probably just a pulled muscle." Well, Gwendolyn, that pulled muscle over time did not go away. It got bigger and bigger, harder. And so a year later, I found a new primary care doctor. That doctor happened to be a Somali lady. Her reaction was totally different. She touched it, she asked questions, she wanted to know how long it had been there, just all those things that a doctor should do. So I could tell further along in our conversation how her demeanor changed. So I knew it was something serious, but I did not think it was cancer. If it's okay, I just want to make one point. And that is when Talaya the advocate was born in that moment, because people may be wondering, well, why did she wait a whole year? Because I made every excuse, because I was climbing the corporate ladder. I was trying to help other family members with things that they were going through. And I look back now and it's like, no, that response and reaction that I got, or lack of action, was not right.
Mhm.
And I should have sought care, additional opinions at that time.
That's very, very important. And I think it's part of the conditioning that we have. It's sort of like we put ourselves last. And that's really a disservice to us in terms of our overall health and well being. So, yeah, thank
Yes.
you for making that point. And let me ask you, how did you feel about your body before your cancer diagnosis?
Sure. So before my diagnosis, of course, I'm only 5'2". So I wanted to be taller. I'm like, man, why can't I be taller? I love basketball. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to be taller. And sometimes in my life, I loved it, as sometimes I hated it, you know. So like most women, you always find those things that you think are imperfect, but in reality, God made us perfectly. So being able to come to that realization took a lot of time, maturity, and self love.
Beautiful, beautiful. You were so young and also very beautiful. You still are, and
Thank
still
you.
are very young, very
Thank you.
beautiful. And I can imagine for young women, there's like no frame of reference for the idea of cancer. That's probably was the furthest thing from your mind. What helped you to navigate this after you received your diagnosis?
Yeah, so you're right, Gwendolyn. It was the furthest thing from my mind, because what I was taught about cancer is that, you know, if you drink, you smoke, you eat really bad, you're going to get cancer. I didn't do any of those things. So it wasn't something I thought about. I was able to navigate cancer by, number one, taking control of my health, being my own best advocate, and letting my healthcare team know what my expectations were up front and how I wanted the whole process to go up front. Thankfully, I was blessed with an oncologist who received my wishes and received the way I wanted to have a partnership with him. So that is what really helped me navigate. The other thing was, again, asking a lot of questions, not being afraid to sound quote unquote stupid, even though there's no dumb questions. But then also doing the research for myself, learning about this type of cancer that I had, which was Hodgkin's lymphoma, understanding how cancer itself worked. And for some people, that might be just too overwhelming, too much. But I looked at it like, okay, this is something that has come into my body in a sense. At this time, it's a part of me. So I need to understand what's happening. And the more that I did that, the more that I felt like, okay, I can do this. I can work with this because I have a better understanding of what's going on.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you became a cancer doula. I mean, I'm familiar with the term doula as it relates to giving birth to new babies. I've actually even heard of a grief doula. Can you just tell our listeners who may not be familiar with the term, what is a cancer doula? What does that word mean?
Sure. So I like to start with the word doula first and break it down in very simple terms. So a doula is someone who supports another person through a major life change or significant health related experience. That says cancer all over it, if you ask me. So as a cancer doula, I walk with my clients. I guide them and support them. I make sure that they are heard and seen, and I make sure that they have the information and resources that they need to make informed decisions about their care and become the gatekeepers of their health and overall quality of life so that they can get on the other side of cancer and enjoy their life. Because it doesn't mean that you're going to die because you get a cancer diagnosis.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I understand. That's wonderful. And so you became a doula, I'm sure, because of your early experience of having to navigate all of this alone in response to your diagnosis.
Yes, actually, I wanted to become a cancer doula so that people didn't have to do all the legwork that I had to do for myself. And also, there's this huge gap between the medical and emotional sides of cancer. A lot of hospitals and clinics and oncologists are focused on treating the cancer. That's what they're taught. No disrespect to them, but that's what they're taught in medical school. And rightly so. They want to keep this person alive. But there's so many other areas that are needing care that are not getting it. And that affects the person who's going through cancer as well if all those other needs are not being met. And so that's why I became a cancer doula to help bridge the gap between the medical and emotional sides of cancer.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. The Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast is sponsored by Moyo Institute Incorporated, a nonprofit organization offering heart-centered educational experiences, and the Lloyd Symington Foundation, which supports visionary grassroots cancer programs. Can you give our listeners an example of someone, respecting their privacy, of course,
Sure.
someone that you've helped in that role as cancer doula? What kinds of things did you do with and for that person?
Sure. So, one great example is there was a woman who was diagnosed with breast cancer, and her family reached out to me because they really didn't know what to do or how to support her. And so, her and I worked together to make sure that she understood all the different stages that she would have to go through based on decisions she made about her care. So the first thing that I did was I provided information about her options. Now, of course, those options were given to her by her oncologist, but I helped her to really understand what that meant, how that could impact her quality of life, potential side effects, and things of that nature so that she could decide which option was best for her. Once she got to that point, she decided, I think I want a different healthcare team. So her and I worked together with formulating a way that worked best for her to get a second opinion and ultimately find a new healthcare team. Okay, once she did that, the next thing that we did was, okay, chemotherapy's starting. How can I best prepare for that? And how can I make it through that? The next phase was surgery. The breast surgery. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now.
No, it's okay.
Mastectomy.
Yes.
Sorry. And she decided to have that. So I helped her prepare for that by helping her find different resources and helping her to understand how that surgery would look, some of the limitations that she would have. I also found videos for her that she could reference as well from the healthcare community. And then ultimately, she decided to do radiation and again prepared her for that. Different types of body creams that could help with her burns, videos about what it looks like inside the radiation room, how that process looks. Talking her through that, and along the way, providing emotional support, encouragement, and just helping to really get the answers to the questions that she had, therefore, reducing a lot of the uncertainty and anxiety.
That's incredible. That's incredible. A really phenomenal service. And I'm sure it made such a difference for her. And I can see why this role is really, really important. Thank you for doing it,
Thank you.
Talaya. Thank you for taking this mantle on your shoulders and serving in this way. It's really, really quite beautiful.
Thank you.
One of the questions I have for you is, what are some of the barriers that you've experienced to reaching people who may need your help or support?
Yes, Gwendolyn. So, one of the main barriers is education. They're not sure what a cancer doula is or how I can help them. And so, I just tell people, honestly, it is based on what your personal needs are. But there's so many different things. I can help you, ask questions at your doctor's appointment. I can be on video and ask those questions for you. I can advocate for you. I can help you navigate the healthcare system. So the first thing is education because it's a newer concept. Most people still don't know what it is. The other thing is funds or resources. Unfortunately, my services are not covered by insurance. So there's some people that may want to get my support, but they simply don't have the financial means.
Have you been able to reach out to any grant funders to try and support the work? Because it's really, really important work.
Gwendolyn, I've applied to a number of business grants, a couple different organizations, and I haven't been able to land one yet, but I've been funding my business myself. And I just, do the best that I can with what I have because this is something that's really important to me. I do not want to go the nonprofit route just because that business model, it doesn't work for everyone. And I just don't want to have to go knocking on a lot of doors saying, hey, can you donate this money to me so I can help people? Because I understand everybody may not believe in my dream the way that I do. So I've been figuring out a way to make it work. That is kind of why I transitioned or added on my podcast as well to still be able to reach those people who cannot work with me one-on-one.
That's really beautiful. And I want to just hold a vision for you getting a miracle. I just want to hold a vision for you that someone will hear this and hear about what you're doing and make a decision to step up and support the work. There's so many different ways that we can be of service. And for those of us who, for instance, are in the field doing the hands-on work, there are others who don't have that space, but maybe they have the resources. So I'm just going to help hold the vision for you to actually attain that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I imagine that starting the podcast, Navigating Cancer Together, is one way of helping to get the word out more, and maybe will be one of the ways that you can reach not only the people who need your service in terms of making it available to people who can't afford to do it themselves, but also to people who can possibly fund it as well.
Yeah. So I really started it because during COVID, I started doing these monthly virtual get togethers, and they were going really well. Every month, I would talk about a different topic, bring people together who may not have had a lot of different people to talk to and connect with. And so once people started getting back to life, as that started to wind down, as COVID started to wind down, there was less and less attendance. But I still wanted to be able to connect with people and make sure that people got what they needed whenever they needed it. And I had always thought about podcasting, but I was like, I just don't have the time. I don't know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. kind of talk myself out of it. But when that time came, when that attendance started dwindling, I still had that desire to do something. And I said, well, I need to talk myself into this. So found my why, which is to be able to help people and reach people who may not have the financial means to work with me one-on-one, who may still want to feel like they're a part of something, who can listen whenever is convenient for them. And so that's why I started Navigating Cancer Together. And I really just started researching. I spent a lot of days, a lot of late nights, a lot of weekends figuring out how to get this thing going and just been learning along the way. And it's just been a blessing to see it blossom and grow.
That's beautiful. I've listened to several of the interviews, and they're really quite beautiful and
Thank you.
very inspiring. And it's so nice to hear how people have gotten to the other side of the issues that they were so fearful of in many respects. And I really just want to acknowledge and applaud you for doing this work. And what I see, Talaya, is a thread. I mean, you've approached this very much like the way you approached handling your own journey back to health, doing the research, looking into it, making the commitment, and going forward. So I want to say that that's one of the reasons why you were selected as one of the dynamic sisters that we
Thank you.
spotlighted at the Love Letters to Our Bodies workshop this year.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Yes. So I want to say that we really looked at several women in terms of what happened in their own personal journeys and what did they learn from that and what did they take from that to create something new. And what I found in you was the taking your personal experience, all that learning and researching that you've done, and making it available to others so that they wouldn't have to struggle through finding out. And I just think that is extremely admirable.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. And in the workshops, we had an opportunity to hear from you. And I just want to know if there was something in the workshops that you felt especially benefited by and that you think others could benefit.
Everything. Everything. I really loved Gwendolyn learning about the mudras. I wasn't familiar with the hand gestures before. I found that to be very helpful. And then also the additional breathing techniques. But really, just being able to come into community with other Black women, we don't get to do that often around something like cancer because quite frankly, I was always the youngest and the only Black person in the infusion room. So just to be able to see that cancer has impacted other Black women and we're all thriving in our own way, I thought that was such a beautiful thing. And then just being able to write to our bodies and say, hey, this is what we've been through. I appreciate you. I love you. And I can honestly say that whole workshop intentionally led up to us women being able to write that letter. I don't know if I would have been able to, or even taken the time to write that letter prior to the Love Letters to Our Bodies workshop. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's just been a real passion and joy of mine to be able to support sisters in that way as well. So,
Beautiful.
yeah, I'm glad you were a part of it. So let's divert a little bit. I want to ask you a couple of questions that are a little bit on the side, but I think they're very important. Can you just tell our listeners what or who inspires you and why?
Oh, yes. I'm so glad you asked this question. I have completely fallen in love with Tabitha Brown, and there are so many different reasons why. She is a vegan. She has made it okay for other Black people to learn more about being a vegan. I've been a vegan for several years now, and it has been so beneficial to my health. So that is one thing. The other thing is just her ability to show up in her authentic self, from her hair to her style to everything. And then also her tenacity and resilience. And by that, I mean, a lot of people may think that she just blew up overnight. No, this woman has been at it for 20 years. And so when I start to get like, wow, I don't know how much longer I can do this, or I'm tired, I just think about her. She just stayed on it. And 20 years later, she's everywhere. And I think that that is a true testament to being true to yourself, not trying to please other people or not caring about what other people think. And it's about truly loving yourself. And so that's why I'm so inspired by her.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. I love that. Yeah, because one of the aspects of deep healing work is being authentic and, being integral. And it sounds like she connected very early on with her purpose and went for it. So
Yes.
very, very good. The other question I'd like to ask is, do you have any affirmations that you use that help you through tough times?
Yes. So there's a couple, if it's okay. There's two affirmations and a quote. And so the first one is, I am enough. I am worthy. And then the other quote that has helped me through tough times, especially cancer, is a quote by Lena Horne. And it says, it's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way that you carry it. And so I'm really into mindset, and that speaks to mindset. Yet we go through tough times, but it doesn't have to overcome us. It's all about how you look at the situation and look at it and focus on things that you can control and go forward in those areas. The things that are out of our hands, pray about it, give it to God, give it to the universe, and be at peace with it. And so that is a quote that has really spoke to me for as long as I've known about it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And that really ties into the overall focus of this podcast, which is the mind, body, spirit connection. And we recognize that in addition to what's happening to our physical bodies, it's also important in terms of what we are letting in mentally and how we're standing guardian over our own mental health and emotional health. And also recognizing that these two work in concert with spirit. So I love what you said about we take action on those things that we can. We are really paying attention to our mindset in terms of how we think about it. And for the things that we can't handle, we turn it over to God. So mind, body, spirit connection. And this has been a tremendous pleasure having you with us here today, Talaya.
Thank you.
And I just want to thank you so much. And thank you again for everything that you're doing in your life on a day-to-day basis. You are an inspiration.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. Thank you for everything that you're doing. I'm so honored that we met, so happy we met. It's been a pleasure. I've learned so much. Thank you for all the beautiful work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. It's being on purpose, being on mission. Have a wonderful, blessed day, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to Love Letters to Our Bodies, conversations on health, healing, and happiness. To find out more about the Love Letters to Our Bodies project, visit our website at moyoinstitute.org. That's MOYO Institute.org. Follow us on social media and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. If there are topics you'd like for us to discuss, let us know. Remember, your body is beautiful, girlfriend. Love it.